This is the Jug O Sip podcast.
There more clues would come out.
Right, but as adults, Lindsey and I actually believe that Big Bob was laundering money through his beeper emporium.
You know, we talked about this before we read our research about the Patakis, that I thought Big Bob was already into some criminal mafia-like activity. He just acts like that. He has like this personality of a dude who definitely, maybe, probably, sort of, maybe is doing criminal activity.
Yeah, he definitely was into some shady stuff to run his business.
I was suspicious of him as a kid. Like, you know, like, you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with this guy? So basically, the reason I think money laundering is because actually I've been watching that show Good Girls, and I learned how money laundering works.
Another show you can see on Hulu.
Yeah,
we're giving these shows a lot of shout outs.
It's a good ass show.
We need to be sponsored.
It's a good ass show. But anyway, so I learned a ton about money laundering from that, and then I, was like, okay, that's interesting. So Big Bob, I don't think, was selling drugs, because he was kind of like a white-collar criminal type of guy. He didn't seem like, if he was dealing anything, it was cocaine. It would definitely be high, like... But
even then, that's entirely too... Because the way that he was running his business, that would have been too messy, and he wouldn't have been able to focus on the beepers as much.
He went out of town a lot for business, but he didn't come back with, like, big, sketchy suitcases. He came back with, like, one suitcase.
Yeah, he came back with the same suitcase he left with. And he's not like the Gus Fring of Hey Arnold. He's not that smart.
No.
He just isn't. He's too big and bombastic. He seems like the kind of guy that
would bring one suitcase just for money. He wouldn't want to travel low-key if he wasn't hiding something. And on top of that, he always wore a hat and a coat even when it wasn't raining.
Right. But he definitely was laundering money. In the
road trip episode for South Dakota, the day they were leaving to go to South Dakota, suddenly some business came up that he had to leave immediately and go to the airport and go to Borneo or some shit. I don't even fucking know, but it was somewhere.
Yeah, he had to leave the entire country.
If I'm not mistaken, it was a country.
Which is crazy, because it's like, what?
He definitely had to at least leave the state. Yeah. And he also, because they were supposed to drive to South Dakota, he didn't even offer them a trip to the airport and say, hey, go take a plane instead of driving. He didn't want them with him at all.
Plus, then you got suspicious purchases like that RV, that hyper high-tech RV he bought for their camping trip.
And also, a white-collar criminal seems like the kind of guy that would just spur of the moment buy a parrot for no fucking reason for his business.
Yeah, which he did do. But here's the thing.
So I don't think he was dealing drugs. I think he was on cocaine and laundering money.
Oh, he was definitely doing coke.
Oh, yeah, he was aggressive and loud and bombastic.
Yeah. He was energetic and a little violent, just like cokeheads. Like he was definitely doing cocaine.
And he was probably functionally doing it.
And he was too coked up to notice that his wife was a dysfunctional alcoholic.
Or to care. He was just so ramped up because it was always like beepers, 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 beepers.
Yeah.
And it's like with him, it's like he would like be like, I have to leave suddenly. Come back with the same suitcase, just not say anything. It's like, were you out getting like money to wash? So what I think was happening is, my theory is, I think Big Bob was leaving the country, leaving the state or whatever, getting his counterfeit money.
Right.
Going back to Big Bob's, and like, I don't know exactly the details here to make this work, but he was somehow trading customers or trading people with the unwashed money for clean money.
Yeah.
And it was through the transactions of the Beeper Emporium. I don't know how he was doing it, but he was somehow like increasing his money in value.
And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense, because even if the money, like for example, in Breaking Bad, all of the criminals in that show had the same problem. They could not spend their money right away without laundering it. This is the reason why you had Gus Fring's, Los Pollos Hermanos restaurant.
Yeah, that was a cover for meth and money laundering, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly. He had to launder the money that he was doing.
And the meth lab was in the basement.
Yes, exactly. Now the thing is, money laundering is his own criminal enterprise business. And when you understand how criminals are forced to spend their money, if you're not money laundering, then you can't spend money as cleanly and openly right away unless it's laundered first. But in the case of Bob, if he was laundering money, of course he would launder the money that he earned from the money laundering, so he can make big purchases like that, and nobody would be the wiser because he had Big Bob beepers.
Fridge pack thing he had.
The RV, the fridge pack, the
impulse
parrot
buys that he did.
First of all, let's do the really obvious thing. The house that they lived in was bigger than, not by much, but bigger than Arnold's house. And Arnold's house was a boarding house.
Now, keep in mind, I did not live in New York in the 90s, and Hey Arnold's roughly based around New York. It's like that's where it's supposed to take place. And it's just various sections
it's
of
like
it all
a fictionalized together. New York.
It's like as if New York is like basically one borough, and all the boroughs fused together in one place. That seems
you can find the Jug O Sip podcast on YouTube and Spotify every Monday and Friday.
And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and follow at Jug O Sip Podcast on all social media.